Welcome back to the Soulful of a podcast, where the cosmos meet the cards and the mundane becomes magical. I'm your guide, 𝗧𝗶𝗺𝗀, and in this episode, we'll dive back into the astrological transits and tarot for the second half of December 2025. If you're thirsty for a soulful conversation, then you came to the right podcast. So let's fill up your cup until you're soul full of it. Hello, soulful seekers, friends, and family. We are halfway through December, and 2025 is burning off faster with every passing day. Nearing winter here in the Northern Hemisphere, the nights are longer, the days are shorter, an annual reminder perhaps to make use of the daylight while we have it, and to light our inner flame to keep us warm as the darkness comes, knowing that the sun will rise again, and so shall we. The end of the year brings with it a self-reflective quality that's natural to the bridge between the Sagittarius and Capricorn seasons. We have to pull our arrows back and aim in order to know which way to go up the mountain as we're seeking the next summit that comes in the new year. We won't reach the top in an hour or a day. It's an unfolding of time. And life is filled with peaks and valleys after all. And with winter nearly here, we're entering a season of slowing down. So it's less about the rush to the top and more about making every step matter as we continue to climb. Cue Miley Cyrus, The Climb, which honestly, probably one of her best songs. I know it's an oldie, but it's also a goodie. And I would say that because she's a Sagittarius and it's Sagittarius season, so gotta be listening to some Sagittarius music during the season of the Sag right before it's coming to an end. Of course, that's something we'll be talking about in this episode with Capricorn season on the horizon, hence all of the metaphors of climbing and mountains. It's very Capricornian. But at the end of the year, that self-reflection is so top of mind for me, and I know it is for a lot of other people as well. And it feels like there's kind of two paths that people will take. One of them is, I didn't do enough. It wasn't a good enough year. They could have done more. Like so much of that, like beating yourself up at the end of the year when you look back and just go, oh my gosh, what did I accomplish? What do I have to point at and say I did that? But on the flip side of that is the polar opposite. And that can be looking back at the year and saying, wow, I made it through that. That was challenging. Or not. Maybe you had a really easy year. In which case, that's awesome. You go off, Clen Coco. That wasn't the case for a lot of us. It was I think, a pretty challenging year for almost everybody, I would say, that I know, at least. And challenge is important, though. In astrology, we talk about squares, right? Square aspects, opposition aspects, T-squares, those types of, quote, challenging aspects. And yet those are imperative in order for us to grow. We have to face challenges, also to have that gratitude for when things are easier, when things are flowing, when things just come to us. That contrast is really helpful for us to cultivate gratitude and for us to also acknowledge the growth that we've experienced. And so at the end of the year, if you're one of those people who's sitting on that in-between space of like, oh, it wasn't enough, I think that we can just give ourselves all a little bit of a break. Viewing this threshold of the new year as an opportunity, looking at it as, what do I want to carry with me forward into the new year, and what do I want to leave behind? And that can be as literal as, I don't want to bring this job with me into the new year. Obviously, you shouldn't just quit your job, right? You probably need to pay your bills in this crazy expensive economy. But getting clarity around that and knowing, hey, this is not the job I want to bring with me into the new year. What is the job that you want to bring with you into the new year? So what are you calling in? What are you leaving behind? That, to me, is the most productive use of that self-reflective nature around this time of the year. And really, it's this turn of the year, right? And 2025 was wild. It felt like a decade condensed into 1 year. It's okay to be exhausted. And it's also okay to leave that behind as you step forward into the new year. 2026 has a lot to offer. And I will be making an episode about the astrology of 2026, so stay tuned for that. That's something I'm working on now, actually, in these darker days of the winter season. Well, I guess asterisks, almost winter season, depending on when you're listening to this. But yeah, I think I just really wanted to share some hope around that self-reflection energy that comes up, and remind myself, as well as anyone listening, that anything you repeat, if it's not improving your life, if it's not lifting you up, you should not be repeating it. Because words are spells and thoughts become things. And this whole reality that we've all been living inside of, the human experience, I always call it that because that's what it feels like to me. It feels like this thing that I, somewhere along the line, signed myself up for. Like, hey, yeah, send me to Earth. That sounds cool. I want to have feelings and feel physical pain sometimes. Sign me up, you know? Like, it's kind of crazy to think I chose this and I don't remember it. And maybe it is a simulation. We don't have the answer to that. Not clearly, but let's play with that idea. If it is a simulation, then what program are you running? What malware do you need to detect and do a full system reset? Have you tried unplugging yourself and plugging yourself back in? You know, that is what we call sleep. That's what we call rest. If you feel like you're burning out, maybe it's because all of the tabs that you have open in your mind, maybe you should close a few of them. Maybe you should close all of them. Maybe you should just sit in the discomfort of silence until it becomes comfortable. If this world is a construct, then what are you constructing? It's that simple, or it's that complicated, depending on how you're looking at it. But even if you put a dose of religion into that and spirituality into that, however you're viewing life, so much of your life, if not all of it, is simply a result of the choices that you've made. And to sit there and look back on those choices and to choose to replay them to yourselves in a harmful way, which is something we're going to talk about with the tarot for this episode, is such a waste of your life force energy. When you could be leveraging that energy, that attention, that fire to create more, to build a better future, to run a more helpful program that you enjoy more. Life is like IRL Sims. We are all just playing The Sims, and your responsibility is to take care of the sim, aka the human, that you've been given. And you only have one, even if you have kids, even if you got a big family, even if you have a bunch of pets like Ace Ventura. You actually only have one human that you must take care of, and that is yourself. Everyone else is a bonus on top of that. And yeah, that makes things a little bit more challenging maybe, but also more interesting, right? I like having dogs. I hear people like having kids. People like having stuff going on in their lives. It makes the human experience more colorful and fun and ultimately worthwhile. And your life is worthwhile. And you get to decide what 2026 is going to look like. And letting go of 2025 is part of that process. So sitting with the simple question of what really matters, that can be a guiding light to help move you into that next chapter or season. This is the Earth season 2026. It's like the real world, but, you know, the real world. And what is the end of the year if not another portal? So let's walk through it together. with the Soulful of Wisdom tarot spread to tell us what the cards call our attention towards for the rest of December. Beginning with, for our wisdom or the rose, at the center of the spread, we have the Six of Swords. In the Six of Swords, a quiet passage unfolds. A ferryman guides a small boat across calm gray water. 6 swords stand upright in the boat, along for the ride, while a cloaked figure and a child sit before them, moving toward an unseen shore. The waters ahead appear smoother than those behind them, yet the destination remains just out of view. We pulled the Six of Swords just last month in November's Part 2 episode as the basis or root, and also earlier this year in May as our attention or Thorns, which is a good indication that this transition has been building up for some time now. And the decision to move forward, it's not something that happened overnight. At the center of this spread, the Six of Swords speaks to making an intentional transition. This is not an impulsive departure or an escape. It's a conscious crossing. We take what we've learned with us, even the toughest of truths, but we are no longer living inside the storm or wading in the waters of indecision. There is a pun there. Waiting in the waters of indecision. And December's wisdom here is about choosing peace over rumination and forward motion over mental loops. It's a card that offers us the turn of a page without giving away the plot of what comes next and exactly where it is that we are headed. Then, for the attention or Thorns, we have the Ace of Wands. In the traditional Smith-Rider-Waite tarot deck, we see a divine hand emerging from a fluffy cloud, offering a living branch crowned with fresh green leaves. In the distance, mountains rise, symbolism of something that, while challenging, is also attainable, while a river flows below, symbolizing energy in motion. This wand is alive, charged and sparking with potential that hasn't yet been shaped into form. The Ace of Wands returns after appearing earlier this year, back in February, as our wisdom or rose, signaling that a spark we once honored is ready to be re-engaged, this time with greater awareness and responsibility. Crossing the Six of Swords, the Ace of Wands asks, what fire are you carrying into the next chapter or into the new year? This is active and creative energy, desire, passion, inspiration, but the momentum will pass us by if we're not willing to act on it. The tension here is between movement that seeks calm and a spark that demands we engage with or express it. Something wants to begin now. An invitation is either already in hand or well on its way. So the question isn't, are you ready to receive it? But are you willing to seize it? Big Carpe Diem energy. Next, for the basis or root position, we have the Nine of Swords. A figure sits upright in bed, holding their head in their hands as 9 swords hang ominously on the wall behind them. The room is dark. The air is heavy with thought. Nothing is actively happening, and yet everything is happening internally. Anxiety, guilt, regret, fear, all swirling around, keeping sleep at bay as the mind hits rewind and replay. The Nine of Swords last appeared in July's Part 2 episode as the Wisdom or the Rose. And now it's sitting at the root of our spread at the end of our year, suggesting that a mental pattern we once became aware of, and maybe one that lingered in the summer months, is ready to be addressed at its source now. This is the card of nightmares, which sounds scary, but that's just it. It sounds scary. But is it? The appearance of this card is an indication that something has been haunting our subconscious. These are the thoughts that follow us into sleep, the worries we repeat to ourselves when the world goes quiet. And yet this card reminds us that suffering here is largely internal, shaped by perception, memory, and anticipation, rather than the present reality. December invites us to recognize where we've been carrying mental burdens that do nothing but torture us. This is not a card of punishment. It's a release point. Awareness is the first step towards rest, and we must make the choice to set the boomerang down so it stops coming back and slamming us to the ground. Then for the guidance or sun position to close out this spread, we have the Seven of Pentacles. In the traditional Smith-Rider-Waite tarot deck imagery, the Seven of Pentacles depicts someone who looks like a farmer leaning on their tool, which is like maybe a shovel. You can only see the stick, so maybe it's just a stick. They're taking a moment to observe a bush filled with that coin, that money, honey, it's pentacles. The harvest is becoming visible right before their eyes, but it is not yet completed. This is a moment of evaluation where patience and perception becomes a part of the work itself. The Seven of Pentacles last greeted us in October's Part 1 episode where it had arrived as the basis or root card, and now it rises as our guidance, showing us how as we apply our efforts, patience is a key ingredient in the recipe of results that we're working towards. Now returning to us in that guidance position, the Seven of Pentacles asks that we trust in divine timing. Not everything needs to be rushed, fixed, or resolved immediately. In fact, some things never get fixed. Some things never get resolved. Some things not being resolved is the resolution. Isn't that maddening? But isn't that also life? The Seven of Pentacles says that some efforts just simply need space in order to mature. This card offers reassurance that the progress is happening, even if it feels slow or not seen fully. December's wisdom here is to resist the urge to abandon something just because the results aren't instant. This isn't your store-bought ramen. It's the work of your soul's purpose in motion. Reflection, refinement, and steady commitment are what are going to yield those long-term results, and ultimately, the rewards or the harvest of all your hard work. These four cards represent mental release, intentional departure, and conscious cultivation. And while each of them have appeared before us throughout this year, there are new opportunities for us to seize now as we consider and integrate these cards in context together. The Six of Swords shows us choosing calmer waters, not because the past disappears, but because we've decided not to live inside of the storm anymore. The Ace of Wands reminds us that even as we seek peace, new creative fire is stirring. Something is alive and wanting expression. Beneath it all, the Nine of Swords names the truth. Our greatest obstacle right now isn't what has happened, but breaking out of the pattern of replaying the past like a broken record. And the Seven of Pentacles reassures us that our efforts are beginning to yield results and that growth is in progress. This is a season of change that asks for patience with the process, compassion for the mind, and faith in what is quietly taking root. And with the wisdom of these cards helping ground us, let's turn our gaze to the sky, where December's astrology continues the invitation to slow down, realign, and prepare for all that comes next, and also to trust in the good things that are coming. So let's continue to fill up your cup until you're so full of it by diving into the transits, beginning with on Thursday the 18th, Mercury leaves the post-retrograde shadow period. Now we have got some newness coming into our communications and a lot less talking in circles. So if you feel like you've been repeating yourself recently, or you've encountered other people who are just repeating themselves, rest assured that the twists and turns of today are no longer the same old loops of yesterday. Mercury is still in Sagittarius, so there remains an adventurous energy around our intellectual curiosities as we get closer to the new year. Mercury moving beyond its post-retrograde shadow delivers clarity for the collective. We're seeking and finding new information, engaging in fresh conversations, and we're ready to lean into the Sagittarius element by exploring new ideas, beliefs, and opposing viewpoints. We're now in the darkness of night, just before the new moon, which is taking place on the very next day, Friday the 19th, at 28 degrees Sagittarius at 5:43 p.m. Pacific Time. Sagittarius is a seeker of knowledge, of truth, and of freedom, as well as an adventurer, exploring philosophy and geography alike. Sagittarius knows that true wisdom comes not only from the books we read, but also from the experiences we have, and that the recipe for a big picture lifestyle requires that we aim to have both in balance. This new moon is conjunct Venus, which indicates that there's yet another focus on relationships, just like the Gemini full moon 2 weeks ago. There's also a square aspect between Venus and Saturn that can bring a bit of seriousness to the relationship energy that's present now. This could show up as a continuation of whatever it is that unfolded earlier in the month around your personal or professional relationships, especially around that Gemini full moon. It could also arrive as a test of boundaries or conviction, a scenario where you just have to know in your own heart that your business isn't to overanalyze and consider what might be best for someone else, but instead to identify and work towards what it is that's best for you. Your loyalty to another should not leapfrog your loyalty to yourself. There's a brilliant quote by author Glennon Doyle that I most likely have already shared on this podcast at some point because it is just potent with wisdom and it is worthy of repeating. And it goes like this. Every time you're given a choice between disappointing someone else and disappointing yourself, your duty is to disappoint that someone else. Your job throughout your entire life is to disappoint as many people as it takes to avoid disappointing yourself. That quote always gets me, probably because I really take it to heart when I disappoint another person. But what would my life look like if I began taking it to heart when I disappoint myself? What would your life look like if you prioritize not disappointing yourself over not disappointing other people? There's a seed of magic here waiting for you to water it. Water it with your tears if you must, but do not let it dry out. Sagittarius doesn't follow another's arrow. Sagittarius follows their own arrow. And this new moon in Sagittarius invites us to do that for ourselves, to follow our own rhythm and calling without wasting our energy worrying what others will think or feel. Because the truth is, we don't know what others are thinking or what they're feeling. Even when they tell us, sometimes, often even, we're just getting the tip of the iceberg. And it's not to say that we should proceed without care for others. Caring is important. And of course, I would know. My name is Carrie. But caring can also be a trap for those of us who give all the fucks. And especially when we give them to people who can't or won't return them. That said, this Venus connection to the new moon also presents us with an opportunity to renew within our relationships. Maybe that's a thank you for the lesson that goes unspoken, but is felt as you move on in your own direction. Maybe that's an apology that shows up slowly as changed behavior, or a new awareness that brings into better balance the give and take that all relationships involve. And with Saturn in the mix, we'll see success if we're dedicated to our own best interests, which means maintaining the boundary, committing to the changed behavior, whatever it is in the land of your relationships. The fruits of your intentions will come to life through your actions. That is how we show others, and most importantly, ourselves, that we mean what we say, and we say what we mean. The ruler of this new moon, Jupiter, is at 22 degrees Cancer, forming an exact square to Chiron at 22 degrees in Aries. Both the larger-than-life planet and the wounded healer comet are retrograde during this friction, giving them a turn inward. And there's a sense of welcoming a new beginning that better reflects an internal truth, which is helping us to begin to externalize what we really aim to achieve. Jupiter is the great benefic and brings with it a jovial dose of, yeah, it can be hard to heal, but it's worth it, which is helping to smooth out the sharp edges of this square aspect. We can work with this new moon by leaning into the healing process, trusting that after the wound stops stinging and itching, healing happens, little by little, day by day, and then suddenly we look back and wonder, where did the wound even go? This reminds me of when I once burned my leg on a hot pipe of a motorcycle. And for me, the burn that I had on my leg, it was really bad. And it also happened when I was out of state and I had to get on an airplane and fly home the next day. And at the time, I was a broke, like super broke college student. And I also had no health insurance. And I remember just being so aware of the pain. And it was the physical pain and then the compounding pain of like, oh my gosh, what if I do need to go to the hospital? Like, what if it gets infected? And just my mind kind of running wild while my body was also like, ow, 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 you know? That combo of pain that we do to ourselves when we're already not feeling great. And luckily, I didn't end up needing to go to the hospital, but it did take weeks to heal. And then one day it was healed. You can't even tell which of my pasty white legs had a burn as big as the palm of my hand because it's not there anymore. And I'm not in pain anymore. And I don't think back on it and shame myself for not knowing to not wear fucking shorts while I'm on a motorcycle. I didn't know any better. And I'm sure as I've been telling this anecdotal story that you've probably thought of a time when you were hurt. Maybe it was physically like I was, or maybe it was emotionally. There's power in recalling that memory as living proof of just how much things can change with time. And this is especially true when it comes to hurting and healing. And yet, time itself is an illusion anyway. Speaking of illusions, this Sagittarius New Moon is also in a square aspect to Neptune, who is now at 29 degrees Pisces. Squares are pressure cookers of progress, and with the new moon making this aspect to Neptune, just a handful of weeks before Neptune re-enters Aries next month, and knowing that Neptune will never again be in Pisces during our lifetimes, there's a powerful finality to this cosmic connection. What dream have you not yet made a plan for? What adventure has called your name these last 14 years while Neptune has been in Pisces that you've not yet said yes to? Or worse, that you've been telling yourself no about? Fear is a hamster wheel frequency. It keeps us running in place, exhausted, and feeling like we're going somewhere because we've spent so much time and energy thinking of all the worst case scenario what ifs. And we can convince ourselves that that is protecting us And maybe once in a while, it is. But how often is that just another story we've told ourselves to stay in our comfort? I doubt you can find an elderly person nearing their final days who would say, I wish I had done more to feel comfortable. No, they will tell you they wish they had ran that marathon while they still had the stamina to do it. They will tell you that they wish that they had not allowed someone who wasn't going where they wanted to go to talk them out of trying to get there. They will tell you that they wish they had taken more risks, bet on themselves, and dreamed bigger, even if it cost them money, sleep, or the imaginary golden star of another person's approval. Because you can always make more money. You can always sleep tomorrow or when you're dead, and you can always give yourself the approval and ultimately the permission that you're looking for from within other people. With this Sagittarius New Moon, we're working with overlapping themes and priorities. It's about committing to the new adventures and experiences our relationships require in order for us to continue growing within them or beyond them, depending on the context. It's also about leaning into healing, which means we need to really listen to our own hearts and figure out what healing looks like for us right now in this season of life. And it's about daring to dream in motion by starting to take small steps towards our heart's desires and our soul's mission, knowing that it's when we finally tell ourselves yes that momentum begins to build. What will you say yes to on the darkest night of the month? Simmer on that as we shift to talking about the shortest day of the year, which is on Sunday, the 21st, when the sun enters Capricorn. Happy winter solstice. This marks 1 year of podcasting for me. Well, technically 3, but then there was that one time I went on a break for 3 years. Do you guys remember that? What a time. Anyways, I just feel like the light has returned to my eyes from a year of soulful creativity. This is also my wish for you, that you can soak in some of your own light, allowing yourself to see the power in your own radiance in contrast to the darkness, which is powerful too. Capricorn season whispers, the days start getting longer now. What will you have built come the spring season? Building is such a Capricorn word. I bet Bob the Builder was a Capricorn. But our society tends to focus on the external when it comes to building, maybe because we live and work in buildings and they are physical things. But what if the thing that you focused on building come the spring season was more confidence, more trust in yourself, more endurance to do the hard things? What if what you are building isn't for others' eyes to see? And to play devil's advocate here, maybe what you're building is 3D. Regardless, Capricorn season is an invitation to, as the Gen Z are saying, be so for real. If the Joker were to ask us why so serious now, well, that's easy. It's Capricorn season. It's a time to be serious about things we may have laughed off during Sagittarius season. It's time to take ourselves seriously, which means prioritizing our health, which is our wealth. And Capricorn loves making that money, and not all of it is actual dollar bills. But money may be on your mind during this increasingly expensive season of consumerism. So a good question to sit with as we move into Capricorn season, just before Christmas Day, is this. If you could not give anyone any physical gifts, what would you give them? There is no right or wrong answer to this question, but if you're not sure, sit with it. And I invite you to consider if your presence could be gift enough. And before you potentially tell yourself that it's not, I'd like to build, here's that word again, in a little reminder that when we all entered this human experience, we brought nothing but ourselves with us. And when we depart, we will take nothing but ourselves with us. And so what greater gift can be given to another than simply ourselves? It is, in all actuality, all we ever truly have. That is why they say your presence is a gift. Then, hot on the heels of the sun, Venus enters Capricorn on Wednesday, the 24th, which is, of course, Christmas Eve. Venus in Capricorn is the energy of devotion. It's deciding to get a gym membership and then actually going to the gym. It's a transit of showing love through acts of service, picking up your partner's prescription on the way home, lending a helping hand when you see someone with their hands full trying to open a door, or asking your coworker if there's any help that they could use with their part of the project since you have a little extra bandwidth. There's a difference between saying, "I hope you feel better," and dropping off a care package. And that's Venus and Capricorn energy. Those who have their natal Venus in the sign of the sea goat tend to know how to play the long game. They invest early and steadily, and they watch their wealth grow as a result. And I'm not just talking about the stock market. Venus and Capricorn people do this in every avenue of life. Like in their relationships, they start paying attention early, which is investing early. They start showing up consistently. They remember the little things like what your coffee order is, and it adds up over time. And then you have an ROI, a return on investment, which is also very Capricorn energy coded. Venus and Capricorn people know how to create routines that not only support, but also enable their expansion. Whether that's stretching to maintain flexibility or eating clean to prioritize their nutrition, Venus and Capricorn people set their sights on an end result that they desire, and they don't hesitate to start working towards it, even if it's just a little bit every day. And the word work tends to come up whenever Capricorn is in the mix. But what is work other than repeated efforts? Our efforts, or lack thereof, are what ultimately afford us the lives that we lead. Our efforts are the builders of our brains and bodies. And with Venus, it's about applying this to our relationships. So what efforts do you need to put in order to get the results you desire in your relationships? If you want a great boss, what does being a great boss look like? And how can you step into that energy yourself so that you can begin to attract it? If you want a lasting love story, what does being a partner in a lasting relationship require of you? Venus in Capricorn says, I'll hold up my part of the bargain, and this is how. It's up to us to fill in the blanks in order to get the most from this transit. So let's Mad Lib our affections into actions over the coming weeks and ride those efforts all the way into 2026. And with that, we have arrived at the end of our episode. So let's take a moment to reflect on the wisdom that the tarot offered us at the start of this episode. The Six of Swords reminds us that not all endings are dramatic. Some are quiet decisions to prioritize our peace and well-being. The Ace of Wands flickers as the spark of renewed desire, showing us that even as we leave something behind, inspiration is already rising to meet us. Beneath it all, the Nine of Swords reveals the mental loops that we're learning to outgrow, the fears that feel loud in the dark but soften once we name them. And above us, the Seven of Pentacles offers patience as medicine, asking us to trust the timing of our efforts and honor the growth that we can't see fully yet. These cards tell a story of conscious transition, releasing worry, reclaiming creativity, and choosing movement over stagnation. December doesn't demand perfection, it asks for honesty, intention, and the courage to keep climbing, even when the night is dark and the path to the summit hasn't fully revealed itself. If you'd like to explore how the cosmos are unfolding in your own chart, this is your last call on the astrology reading holiday sale that I'm offering until the end of December, which of course you can schedule for January, February, or March. I have all sorts of dates open and available already. The code you'll want to use for live virtual readings, which are 90 minutes and cover your natal chart as well as current transits, is Magician. That will give you 50% off, bringing the session to just $111. The discount code Magician will also work for 50% off of these readings when gifted, which is now available for the holiday season, and also set up so that you will receive a link that you can share with the person that you're gifting to so that they can fill out my intake form and schedule a time for their reading that works well for their schedule. Lastly, if you're interested in a shorter 30-minute pre-recorded mini reading, you can use the code ALIGN for $27 off, bringing the price down to $50. You'll find the link to schedule in the show notes and also available in my Instagram bio at @SoulfulOfIt. And then my email is also in the show notes below if you have any questions. Coming up in January, we'll be talking about Mercury entering Capricorn, the super full moon in Cancer, and some aspects between the Sun, Venus, Jupiter, and Mars that will set the scene for the start of the new year. Thank you, as always, for joining me to explore the cards and the cosmos in this episode and throughout this wild year. That was 2025. Stay grounded, stay curious, stay soulful of it, and I'll catch up with you in 2026. See you next year.